take an informal poll before we get going. How many people actually use Display Suite right now? Okay. So it seems like at least half. Okay. Well, so hopefully you'll get something out of this. I mean, I do cover a lot of odds and ends around it. Like, we're going to try out a couple of the kind of support modules that comes with Display Suite, like the search and the forms. We're going to go through like almost every extra option on it. So several things that if you haven't played with the whole thing, hopefully that'll be helpful. But, you know, it's meant for kind of intro level. So, okay. Wait another minute. Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get started. You are in Site Building with Display Suite. My name is Jay Calicott. I am with Media Current. Today's outline. We are going to cover a lot of things, as I've said. We're going to go over the basics. We'll talk some about, you know, what Display Suite versus Panels. Panels does some of the similar things to Display Suite, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to go through layouts, using the stock layouts, creating a custom layout. We'll go through each type of field type that you can add to Display Suite. Talk about exporting Display Suite to features, views integration, search, forms, and then a bunch of extra options that some of which are pretty cool. A little bit about me. I'm a lead Drupal architect for Media Current. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I am the maintainer for the Open Church distribution. And I've been a Drupal developer for a while, since around 4.6. And you can follow me at Drupal Ninja. All right, so first let's talk a little bit about the basics. Oh, also real quick, could somebody maybe turn off a couple of the lights in the back? I was messing with that easier. I think that'll be, yeah. Don't fall asleep. I think it's easier because we're going to have a lot of little videos that I'll talk you through. And some of it is a little bit hard if you're in the back. So if you're having trouble seeing, you might want to move up. Unless you have like perfect eyesight. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the basics. Why would you want to use Display Suite? Well, you are able to take full control of your content and theme it the way you want it to look without having to use TPLs. You can export things to features. You can change labels. You can add styles. You can have really granular control over your markup, which is one reason why themers really tend to gravitate towards Display Suite. You have such good control. We'll see some of this in the demos we're going to go through, but you get such good control over the markup that it's spitting out that it really helps themers out as they're theming the site. It's got good views integration. And then last point, you'll definitely want to use the 2x branch. Learning the hard way. Before it was completely stable and the recommended release it is now, I was using the 1x branch and there was no upgrade path. So that wasn't fun. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Display Suite and Panels. Just because they're both site building tools, I've given a presentation before at the last camp I was at in DC. I talked about context, panels, views, Display Suite. These are very popular site building tools with Drupal where you can use mostly the UI to build out your site. Some of them you can use together. I mean, certainly you can use these together. But since there's some overlap that a lot of times people use one or the other. The thing about panels is that it's very popular with developers, and Display Suite tends to be popular with themers. Like I said before, having that really granular control over the output for specific fields in your content is why a lot of themers tend to really like Display Suite. Also now, as we're getting into responsive web, being able to use your Drupal site and have it respond, based on different devices. Display Suite, in my experience and, talking to people, is a lot easier to deal with responsive than panels. I think panels, it's possible, but maybe it's more difficult. But, they're both good tools. This screenshot on the left is from OpenChurch, and I use OpenChurch in several places. I use it actually for several of my content types. And so in that way, I could have used Display Suite. I wasn't as big of a Display Suite fan so much in 6. In 7, to me, it's so much more improved. It's really slick, really good UI. What I like about Display Suite is I feel like it is taking the Drupal UI and extending it, giving you more options without introducing some new UI. The issue with panels that's been there for a while is that the UI is not the friendliest. I think developers tend to like it more than, say, themers or sometimes, the in-client editing. I haven't gotten great feedback over the years. So for me, I've tended to drift more towards using Display Suite and context to do what I want to do. And those tools together, I can do pretty much what I could do before with panels. So a lot of it's preference. Some Drupal shops use only panels. They use panels all over the place. Chapter 3 is a good example. They've even got a panels distribution that they have. And so some shops are just all about panels all the time. I've heard conflicting information as to whether it's going to make it to 8 or not. But it's a very popular. Display Suite is also very popular. And so that's kind of, the comparison a little bit.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would Display Suite be used in place of something like Omega?
No, you would use it with Omega, for sure. Yeah, they work really well together. Absolutely. And so just last point on Display Suite and panels. I've been a fan for panels for a while. I still like it. You have a lot of power with panels. But, the last several months for sure, I've been pretty much all Display Suite. That's pretty much what I go with now. And so I'm not, foremost expert on Display Suite, but I'll try to answer your, questions at the end. Okay. First, layouts. The first video, and we've got a bunch of these. They're very short. But here's my really awesome demo site. And the first thing we're going to do is we're taking the article content type and we're going to adjust the layout. You see this new option when you have Display Suite enabled, you get this nice little layout area. And so you got a bunch of different options. First, I'm changing it to the one column. And it looks kind of similar, but then some stuff kind of disappears. Instantly, just using the one column gives you kind of some new fields that you didn't have before. So even if you use a one column, it's pretty nice. You've got the title, you've got submitted by, you've got other things that aren't really available without Display Suite. And so next, I enabled the two column. And so I'm just going to drag a couple things to the left and to the right, just for demonstration. See how it looks? To me, it's very intuitive because it's not that different from the stock UI you get with Drupal. Got configuration. Okay. Save it out. In. Now it's split up. Okay, so there's your stock layout options. You have several. Okay, now we're going to look at custom layouts. Now, this is a little bit more advanced. It's not too bad. We're kind of going to walk through it backwards a little bit, not starting something from scratch, but kind of seeing, here's a layout that I had that's I call teaser, which isn't a very inventive name, but we're going to kind of walk backwards through it a little bit and see how I came up with this. Okay. Okay, so you see I've got some custom regions there. This is actually a real layout that I ported from another project I was working on, and it's called Teaser. It just has some new regions. And we're going to walk through the code a little bit. Here's my little IDE, and we're going to talk about kind of how I came up with this. Up near the top, it's kind of hard to see. It's going to start in a second, but the first thing you're going to want to do is look at the DS folder and look at the layouts for the stock layouts. And usually you're going to copy some of the files from one of the stock layouts to kind of get you started. So here's the 2-column, and it's basically a bunch of variable placeholders for your different regions. For each region defined, you'll have some variables available. So in a second, it'll show the TPL code again. So here's the stock layout. You see left wrapper, left classes, and then there's some boilerplate stuff that you would just copy and paste. So here's my DS teaser. It's very simple include. You could copy and paste, a real example or something, and then just change whatever regions. So I've got title, subhead, body, buttons, image, and you see there's a wrapper variable and classes variable. And so you can kind of see how it looks. I mean, it's not the simplest thing in the world, but it's not too complex. There's the original 2-column. So it's really just, whatever markup you want in there, and then the little variable placeholders that'll spit out your regions and, whatever element's going to wrap the regions, and then whatever classes you assign. And there's my CSS that I kind of simplified for the demo. Just floating the image area left, the content area right. And then you just assign your fields to that area. And so it's really not that bad. I mean, it's kind of the finished product. So it's kind of up to you whether you think, you're comfortable with doing that. Sometimes you can get away with just using the stock layouts and then maybe adjusting the CSS, in your own CSS files, as opposed to creating a completely new layout. But, this is good if you want a completely arbitrary layout that you define. All right, so the next 4 little videos are going to be over adding display suite fields. The very first one we're going to go over is the code field. Okay, so you have to have Display Suite UI turned on for this to have those fields. So we have that module enabled. Give it a really creative name, like my first Display Suite field. We're going to expose it to Node. Most of my examples are for Node, but no, you can add this stuff to other stuff too, such as users or comments. If you have commerce enabled with products, you could do it for products. I think anything that can have fields can use Display Suite. And so I'm adding a little bit of PHP. You have to have the PHP module enabled. Now the first time I did this, I had a PHP error, but I just left it in there. Okay, so I saved it. Now I've got my field on the Manage Display. I'm going to drag it up just to the body area so we can see it. And all it's doing is printing out foobar or something like that. I forget what it. And I've got a PHP error. So that's the fun stuff you see if you have an error. Okay, so let's see what happened. Go back. Manage Display. There's a little shortcut for the managed fields. So there's another way to get to this, but there's a nice little shortcut. See, there's my field. Down here, I was missing a single quote. So we'll save that out. X out of that. There's my new field. It's beautiful. Okay. All right, next one, custom block field. I tend to use this one a lot. All right, we're repeating the steps. Hopefully this is helpful if you haven't done this before. Okay, back to add fields, add a block field, Same kind of thing. So on this limit field, this is kind of an optional thing, but you can limit, where the field shows up in the UI. So I'm selecting, I can see all the blocks, available just like you would see on the blocks page. But so that limit field lets you, right now I'm limiting it to just the article content type. You can even limit it to a specific view mode on the content type if you wanted to, just to make your UI not crazy and have a bunch of fields. So there's my new block field. Drag it up. All right, save that out. And there's my block powered by Drupal. Okay. All right, moving along. Custom dynamic field. Now this one's maybe confusing. So I hope this is helpful because when you look at these, if you've played around with this, it's not always obvious exactly what they're doing. Like I remember looking at the dynamic field. I was like, what in the world is this? You enable it and not sure what happens. So we're going to create it just like we did the other fields, but this is the important part. So there's my field. Drag it up. So you have the little configuration button, and this is the important area, is the select content link that you get. And then you see this little dialog that's basically using the same kind of chaos tools thing that Panels uses. And so you have the same kind of options where you can add a bunch of different blocks and things that you might not be able to add as easily through other means. So I added the node title. And there you go. I don't tend to use this one very much, but, it's useful, to know about it. Now, this one I do use a lot. Okay. Now, so you can add fields with the PreProcess node hook. I'm putting it in a module. You could also put it, I think, in template.php, which I kind of forgot about. I probably should have shown it that way, but I'm pretty sure you could add it in your template.php as well. All I had was a very simple field. What's important here is when you add it in the UI, the machine name has to match. So you had a variable name in your PreProcess node hook, and this kind of connects it. So this will show it in the UI. So I had custom underscore DS field or something like that. I tend to like that option a lot because I have very good control if I need to do something with the database or something like that. It's just spitting out foobar, but you have a lot of control over that as a developer, so I really like that option. So there's your 4 field types. All right. Talking about exporting to features. I've given features presentations before. I'm a big fan of exporting stuff to code. So we'll just show this a little bit because Display Suite gives you several different drop-down areas. So you have field settings that you can export per content type. All of our custom fields that we've defined are also exportable. And then the layout settings is also exportable. And it's kind of confusing to know exactly what each is doing, but if you're exporting, you're probably going to want to grab everything that's related to your content type, usually. So, okay. All right, now this is an important part, using Display Suite and views together. I used to be, pretty adamant about, with my Drupal 6 sites in particular, I like to use the fields row display where you set up your view, you add a bunch of fields, and there you go. With Display Suite, since I've got so much control over display, I tend to like to use the content row style and just pick my view mode. So I can say I want to pull articles. I'll use the content row display. It used to be called node, now it's just called content. And select view mode, maybe teaser, something like that. And then it kind of delegates it to the content type. And I really like that. And I think that's good as far as handing it off to a themer, where I'm saying I've got a blog list page. It's pulling a bunch of blogs. The view doesn't really care that much about how it looks. It knows that it's just pulling blog teasers. And then kind of the themer can go in and like theme it how they want it to. So I like that it avoids field bloat, and I've had a problem before where you have several views that have similar look and feel, and you have some duplication because the views have the same kind of fields, same kind of look and feel. So I'd rather just have the content type do that once and not have the duplication. And sometimes there's less overhead too with your database query that Views is building behind the scenes, where if you add a bunch of fields and you have the preview turned on for your little database query, a lot of times you would see that it's adding a ton of left joins and things that can sometimes really bog down a site. So I tend to prefer this way a little bit to kind of avoid less joins. I mean, it's not always the case, but in general, I kind of like that a little bit better. And so we'll show an example. Okay. Here's our views example. Now, I enabled the front page view, which is a view you have that nobody uses, but for example, we'll just use it. So front page view, it's enabled. This is what I'm talking about, using the content row and then selecting my view mode. So I selected new teaser, which is a view mode I created. You also have the option to use the display suite row style, and that gives you some other options. I haven't really used it all that much, so we're not going to go over it, but be aware that it's out there. So there's so many different options with display suite, it's hard to cover everything. But so in this example, I'm using the display suite row style. I'm using it with no options, so it's basically the same as content row style. And so now the front page view is I'm just telling it all I want is my new teaser view mode for, articles. And that's it. Alrighty. Now for the display suite search video. This is a module that comes with display suite, so you need to enable it first. But we're going to go through how to get this to work because it's a little bit tricky. There's a couple settings you need to be aware of. So I do an initial search. There's my test article again. We have the really ugly teaser you get by default. And it's kind of a hassle to customize, even if you've got the TPL open and are editing it there. So we've got this new little area for search. I'm leaving a lot of the defaults. You can use this with Apache Solr. I'm using it with the core search. What's great is that now you can select a view mode instead of being left with just the default search result that you get with Drupal that's ugly. So now we can use one of our custom, our custom view modes. So the second thing you have to do, though, is go to search settings. That's an important part because you need to enable the display suite search and probably make it default. So in this example, I disabled the user search and the node search, and I just left the display suite search. And so there you go. So now you can do whatever you want. It'll make themers happy. They can do whatever they want for the search results, which the client always wants. I mean, the client never says, oh, that looks good, the default crappy looking thing you get, and they never want that. So this makes it easy on you. What's really nice is if you use Apache Solr or Acquia Search or something that uses Solr, the whole little node object thing is sent to Solr, and so it doesn't add database overhead. So that's really nice if you use Solr. And so it can scale really well. Okay, so some of you might have gone to the presentation next door. I only saw the tail end of it, but I saw him showing how to kind of edit the kind of back-end interface with forms, edit forms, things like that. There's a couple different ways you can do that. Panels allows you to do that, where you can rearrange stuff on the edit form for a content type. Well, Display Suite also lets you do that. And so it's pretty neat. And so you've got to enable the display suite forms module. But it's pretty easy, so we'll walk through that now. Okay. So you're going to want to go to everything. A lot of stuff starts with structure. So structure, content types, find your content type, manage fields. And so now you have this whole new little layout area for your content type. And so you see you have the same options you have on the manage display. So we're going to use 2-column. And now you can drag stuff to the right, you can drag stuff to the left. It's really neat. So if you want to, mimic like WordPress or something, kind of clean up the interface a little bit on the back end, especially if you have a lot of fields, there's a lot of kind of creative things you can do. So we click edit. See, now we've got our new layout. Now, this is a clunky example. You wouldn't do it this way, but you can do some cool stuff with that, similar to panels. So, either module can do that pretty well. All right, display suite field templates. This is an important extra that you'll probably want to enable if you're a themer type. And so this is under the extras area, which we're going to spend some time in.
Quick question about the forms.
Hold on. Okay, let me pause it. Okay, yes.
Can that be modified by writing roles or something that has different edit fields based on the role that's editing it?
I kind of doubt it. I don't really know, but I would doubt that you could. We'll talk about permissions on the other end. On the edit form, I'd be surprised if it had that kind of control. So, maybe. So what's interesting here is that you can have a lot more control over your field's output. And so now when you click configure on your little field, you get even more options. So you can do minimal, you can do full reset, you can do expert, which is what I tend to use, what themers tend to like. And here you have all kinds of stuff. You can add classes, attributes, you can change the element, and this is really helpful for themers who need extra divs, and there's all this kind of stuff that they have to do to get it to look like the Photoshop mock-up, and so that really helps them out. And that's basically it on that. I mean, we've talked about having the default be kind of minimal. If you're kind of tired of all the crap markup you get, a lot of themers really like that, to let's reduce the markup, make things cleaner on that end. So it might even be a good idea to default it to that way, to minimal. All right. So now on to some more extras. We're going to go through all of these. So strap in. Get ready. I can feel the excitement. Okay. All right, so the first thing, view modes per node. Click on extras. Now, this one I haven't really had a use case for. I think you could probably get too cute with this, but this allows you to change the layout per node. So now on the edit page of the node itself, it could be other types of content, but here's for node. So now for this specific node ID, I just changed the layout. So like I said, I don't know what the exact use case is for it. I'm sure there are reasons to do that. I wouldn't recommend doing that a lot. That could get kind of hairy. So. Yeah, I think maybe. Like the use case, the question was, or the comment was kind of about the use case for, I'm sure there are several, but if you have yes, yeah, I guess, same content type, different view. I don't know, I haven't really thought it all the way through, but that's just something, you know how to do it, so.
Like newspaper sites, they want to have control over the content display, or if they have a really large image, they might want to show the large image instead, so a different view mode to showcase a larger image for a particular node.
That is a good point. And newspapers are, editors are very picky sometimes. So having the ability to change stuff around for like one specific page, so there definitely could be a use case for that. Okay, now here's one that's a lot more common. I really like this because I kind of didn't know it existed. You can adjust your page title. In the past, I've done this other ways that I don't think is as clean, like having to edit a TPL somewhere or hide it with CSS or something like that. So this allows you to adjust the page title for a content type. And so I can manually set it, or I can hide it. I mean, there's a lot of use cases for this. One being is sometimes I'll get a mock-up where it's like on the video pages, you might have like a section title. You might call it multimedia that you want to use the page title area for, but you still want to show the actual content item title. And so you could drag the title, using Display Suite and then hard code the title to something you want. So this could be hard coded to media for videos and other things. So I think there's a lot of use cases for that. All right, disable block regions. This is also an option I don't really use, but we're going to, disable the regions so we can make it disable the sidebar. I think there's other ways to accomplish this. Probably if you're using context, maybe you could disable it as well. But just so that you know that for a particular content type, if you want to disable your Drupal blocks regions, you can do that with that checkbox. It shows up in the main layout settings. And so, no sidebar. Yeah. So, well, see, that's what's confusing. Like, because sometimes you've got like header regions, so I don't really know for sure. And also, there's like a warning on the option itself that says, this doesn't necessarily work great for all themes. So I've got just this stock Bartik theme enabled. So I just am never really trustworthy of anything that says it's going to disable regions, because like you're saying, I don't know which regions. Is it going to disable all of them? I mean, that seems weird, but it's an option that's out there. Look, we're going to go through all of them, okay? All right. Now, field permissions, you can make it have permissions for every field. This is also a thing that I'm not crazy about using. Once you enable it, all of a sudden you get all these new permissions. So you can have permissions for view on title. Now here's the thing I didn't look at to see if it had edit permissions too. I wasn't paying attention to that. So if there was permissions for the edit form, I guess it would be with that option too. I don't know. So, but I think this would make me crazy trying to have that kind of granular control. There's other ways of doing that, but that option is out there. The content access module, which also kind of makes me crazy. One of the things, I'm a developer, so I'm comfortable writing a little hook, but there's also a little hook, I forget exactly what it's called, but that lets you kind of, in a real easy, granular way, like just hide a specific field. I was never crazy about content access or this, just because it forces you to manage all these permissions for all these fields. I would think that would get really cumbersome very quickly, but it's out there. So, okay. Region to block. This is my new favorite thing that I wasn't really aware of till recently when I was forced to try out everything. So I want to see everything that's out there. So now this option I'm in love with. It's called region to block. And we'll see what it does. What's interesting, this is only available for just view modes other than the default, and I'm not exactly sure why that is, but you can't do this for your default. So first, now you have this new area. I define a new region block thing called new DS block. So all of a sudden we've got this new region. So I start dragging stuff into this new region area, and it's going to create a block for me. Save it out. Now, also in this video, I'm going to show you how I just mentioned how it's not available for default. So when I click default, it's not available. So you would, if you needed to do that for your full content view mode, I guess there's an option to enable full content view mode. So I think you would want to enable that if you need this. Okay, so now I'm on the admin structure blocks page, and there's my new block. And so if you were using context, you would, do the same thing. So this is a really cool tool for this reason. A lot of the mockups and things we get are very creative with, how content is displayed on the full content page, where they'll have like some fields kind of in the main content area, but then they want some stuff in a sidebar. You're like, okay, well, I need to get to that. So in the past, sometimes I use like a view that has an argument for the node ID or something like that, and then make it spit out a field. And that's okay, but this is so much cleaner. It's real easy. If you're handing it off to the themer, they can have some control over it. And it's cool. It's like you can just put whatever fields in there. All of a sudden, you've got this new block. And then with context or whatever you want to use, you can just move that over to the sidebar. I mean, that's not an uncommon use case. I've had several cases for that. And so that's cleaner than having to create like a view or something for just that one little thing. This is much cleaner to me. Okay, so now this is kind of an advanced option. Views displays. So you can use display suite layouts within views itself. And so we're going to views, go back to our awesome front page view. Click on this area. So now we've got this new option, display suite fields. And it gives you a little shortcut. We'll use that in a minute. So first I'll add a couple fields. I'm not crazy about this. I'll talk about that in a minute, but just so that you know how it works. So I'm going to add title, body. Save it out. Okay, so now we'll click back on settings, and we want to go to that little shortcut that takes you to your views layout options. Now there's a couple. You can add a template for like the view kind of wrapper. So that includes like the header and footer and stuff. You can also add one for the field itself. So same kind of layout options. And so those are the two fields I added to that view. I've got body and title. And so now I've got a little layout thing for it. And so that's okay, but I could have done that in the content type. What's interesting to me is this other layout option for kind of the view area itself. This one I'm pretty interested in. It's you can move the pager, you could move the header. I mean, you might have be aware about attachments and things like that, attachment after, things like that. All this stuff you can move around, which is pretty appealing to me. I'm not positive. I wish I could have this option without using the other option. I'm not sure you can, because I'm just not crazy about using fields and layouts in this particular way. Like I said earlier, I'm really kind of a fan of using the content row display or the display suite row display. Yeah, go ahead, Kendall.
Maybe like a use case for using this output method rather than on the content type itself. If you had a view that was pulling in, more than a couple different content types, so you didn't want to configure the content type display for each one of those. You could play in the view itself. Maybe that would be
Yes. So, yeah, you have to, whenever you're setting up a view, certainly if you have a bunch of different content types, you might want to use fields instead. But I still like using display suite most of the time, because I like that if I have, let's say I have a media page that pulls in video, pulls in podcasts, it pulls in different types of media. I like being able to set up the display for each one. So say I'm pulling in the teaser. The video has this like third-party image field that's different. Image gallery has an image field that's different. Podcast may have some kind of hard-coded stock kind of image that comes with it. I like being able to delegate it to the content type, set it up for each content type. I mean, it's going to be up to you, the site builder, to decide kind of what's the best thing. So, you have to think about it a little bit. That's generally the way I go. I don't do fields as much anymore if I can avoid it. So that's really a preference thing. Okay, view mode switcher. This is pretty cool. So when you add that option, you're going to get a new field. It's called switch view mode. Drag it up to the content area. You have a couple options. So you see teaser, new teaser. You see the other view modes. So you can create little labels, which are going to be the Ajax links. Still have your other options. Click update. So when I save it out, I'm going to have this new little Ajax switcher thing at the bottom. It says teaser, new teaser. So I click on it. It instantly shows the teaser, which is kind of cool. Now, it disappears on the teaser because I didn't set it up for that. So I'd have to set it up multiple times, which is okay. A lot of times you might want to do that. So what's a cool use case for this is like you have a home search or something, and home searches, it's like you'll have gallery view, map view or something. There's some cool stuff you could do where it's like user wants to see like more images or something. They just click on, the link and then it shows it, I think that's a pretty cool use case. So that could be handy. All right, for this last one, we're just about done. I didn't do a video for this one. This one's pretty simple. When you enable hidden region, it gives you this new hidden region where you can drag stuff to. And it seems kind of pointless to me, but I guess there's a use case for it. It says that it will build it but not show it. So I'm not sure why you would need to do that, but I guess there's a purpose for it. I never use it. So there you go. It's like, what's the difference between disabled and hidden? So I guess just the difference is that, disabled seems better to me, but so maybe there's a use case.
HTML, though, is what you're saying?
Do what?
So actually showing you HTML as a vendor, the hidden, does it bring the content? Does it bring the actual just?
It does not render it in the page, so you won't see it at all. But it builds it, so it does the extra PHP processing, whatever. So
Maybe if you wanted to use a PreProcess field or something else and like pull that data.
yeah, I guess that's why you would do that. Is what Kendall is saying is like you have one field that needs a value from another field. I think that's the use case for it. So
Kind of like in a view when you add
Yeah.
a field and then you say hide and you bring it into another field.
yeah, I think that's the use case for it. So you've got a field value. You have another field that you are displaying that needs something from that other value because maybe you're combining it or doing something with it. So I guess that's a use case for it. So thanks for that.
So it does not, it's not on this page whatsoever with a display of none.
No, I looked at it and I didn't see it like that. It says in the description of the option, it says that it's built but it's not rendered. So I think it is just so other fields can have access to it, or anything that can tap into that into like the node object or something. So it's kind of an advanced use case, so I don't know that it's that important, but it's there. So that is the end. Just a couple links. I've got project page link. And we're going to publish this obviously, so you'll have access to this. And so changes in 2x are informative to read up on. And then what's really good is the video series by the maintainer. And he's pretty thorough. I've watched several of his little videos, and they're longer than mine. So hopefully you had a kind of a good general kind of overview of everything. And yeah, thank you very much. Now we've got, let's see, I'm seeing 3:42, so we've got some time for questions if got questions. All right, in the back.
Earlier you showed where it adds all the field permissions.
Yes, the field permissions.
Issue the other day with that. If you have too many permissions on the permissions page, Drupal will not save them.
It will not what?
It will not save them.
Oh, that's a problem. Okay, so just to repeat it for the audio.
If you have too many permissions on the permissions page, it will not save them.
Yeah, let me repeat it because I've got the mic. So that's good. So if you have too many fields, I guess too many permissions, then there's a bug where you try to save it and it won't save. So that's basically something to be aware of. Kendall?
I was going to mention if you use the expert display for fields, then you can add in Omega grid classes if you want to build out the same grid structure that you're already using. You just add in like grid-4 or grid-2, and you can make that whole display suite column take on the Omega.
Oh, that's very interesting. So using Display Suite with Omega, you can add Omega grid classes using, is it the field templates? Yeah, so if you use the expert setting per field, in your Display Suite settings, you can use the Omega grid classes. So that's helpful.
Actual display suite columns too. If you don't want to do it per field, you can add it to the
You can do it per columns, and now you're losing me a little bit because I'm not an Omega expert, but Omega integration. So there you go.
Could those, where you're talking about the hidden fields,
Okay, hidden. Mm-hmm.
could that be used like for robots that search the site?
Using,
I mean, could
oh, the
for like search engines?
I'm not sure. So you're saying,
There's things that you can hide that will show, for other
well, the search indexer, I'm not exactly sure. I think it would use the fields that you have on the search result view mode. I would think if you enable that it uses that, I think. I'm not exactly sure. So the question was kind of going back to the hidden region, like, is it used for search? I don't think so, but I'm not exactly sure. So don't worry, we'll find that use case. It's out there. Maybe. Okay, in the back, okay, yeah.
Is there a way that you can pass in arguments like you can in panels?
That I don't know. I don't think you can. I know I use that in panels and I really like it. One of the really cool things about panels is like you can embed a view. The view has an argument, so maybe it's some ID or something, and you can pass the argument along and kind of reuse a view maybe in different contexts, and it's a really powerful kind of a reuse thing. I'm not aware of how you would do that in Display Suite other than if it's using like the node ID from the URL or something, then you can have your view default to using stuff in the URL. But otherwise, I'm not exactly sure that it's going to be as good because I don't think you have the ability to pass arguments. So maybe I'm just not aware of it.
Have you tried, or I haven't looked on the documentation or anything, but are there any hooks available to kind of manipulate it a little bit more from a programming standpoint of view?
Okay, so the question is being able to manipulate it from a programming point of view. I would think that the hooks you would use are going to be the hooks that are already there for manipulating nodes. Now, all of my examples were pretty much just for node content because that's kind of the most common use case. You can use it for taxonomy. I don't know a lot of people using it for taxonomy. It's more useful for like some people might use it for comments, things like that. But so I would think you would use those other hooks and you could use them the same way. Ben?
Is there a performance implication for using it?
So the question is about performance. The short answer is I'm not real sure, but like I haven't done like some kind of exhaustive test. I know that like when I've switched kind of sites from panels to Display Suite, it seems to be more responsive to me. It seems like it's less overhead to me, but it may be pretty comparable. So I'd love to know kind of like, some kind of hardcore performance statistics. It seems to do pretty well for me. I mean, just offhand. So, but I don't have like a definitive answer for that.
What IDE were you using?
I was using NetBeans as my little IDE. I like NetBeans and Eclipse. I like those. So, any other questions? All right, thanks a lot. If you want to come talk to me, come along. So, thank you very much.